It is 5:30, and I'll call the city council committee meetings together. And first item will be personnel committee. Mr. Thurman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, first item on our agenda is our health insurance renewal. And I will just turn this over to, is this going to be Monica or Cheryl?
Actually, it's going to be Rodney Dryden and Kim Henricks from Hub Insurance or Hub International or our insurance company. Dave?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to hear us out tonight. As you know, the city transitioned in 2021 to Blue Cross Blue Shield from United Healthcare, and we saw a pretty significant reduction in costs last year. As a part of the process last year, we negotiated a rate cap for your 2022-23 plan year with Blue Cross Blue Shield. That rate cap was 9.9%. As a part of our process, we did take it to the marketplace and got the increase down to 5. We have our dental, life, disability, vision also with Blue Cross Blue Shield. When you net all of the discounts out for that, we're looking at a net increase of about 1.36%, which in dollars in premium to the city equates to about $11,000 increase for the coming plan year. That's a very high level overview of the results of the coverage. Basically, it's going up $5.57 from the city's perspective per employee per month in total cost, making our employee cost for the coverages that the city provides. It's currently $463.10, and it would go to $468. I'm going to turn it over to Kim. I think everybody has access to the files that we submitted, and I'll turn it over to Kim and let her walk through as much or little detail as you would like to hear about that. But Alan, would you have anything you'd like to interject before we move forward with that?
No, sir. I think the council will have some things to discuss, but at this point, nothing more to add.
Okay. Kim, it's all yours.
Right, sorry about that. Let's see, I think that Ronnie pretty much covered everything as far as price increases. I'm not sure exactly what y'all have in front of you, so I'm going to share my screen and with the final analysis from Blue Cross Blue Shield. And they've got the final rate with the 2 plan options that are currently in place. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick. Okay, so you should be able to see a medical plan analysis with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Current plans with the HSA plan and the PPO plan. And then the final rates that Blue Cross Blue Shield has provided with the ancillary product discount already applied. So $425.85 for the HSA plan for the employee only cost, and then the PPO plan is listed at $462.60.
And we don't see your screen.
That's the show. Oh, you're not seeing that?
We've got it.
How about now?
Okay,
Yeah,
there you go.
There we go.
Okay, so this is what it looks like, medical plan analysis, sorry about that. Due to the current rate in the first column, that's what you're looking at currently, 428. For the HSA plan, which this is your basic plan. Last year, we established all of the city contributions on the HSA plan. And then the PPO option was only available to people who were currently in that plan. And I believe that's the way we're going to go forward with it this year. We'll be looking to you to make that decision. But you've got two plan options. The HSA plan has a $3,000 deductible. The PPO option or copay plan has a $3,000 deductible, but then copays for your doctor's visits and prescription drug plan. The HSA plan obviously is a high deductible health plan, so the deductible has to be met first. Then the plan pays 80% until you get to a maximum out of pocket of $6,350 per year. The PPO copay plan is very similar with the $3,000 deductible. You've got prescription drug copays, a $0 copay for primary care physicians, or a $100 copay for specialists. But then it also has a $6,500 out-of-pocket maximum for the year. These are the renewal rates in yellow. As you'll see, we've illustrated the total monthly premium, the annual premium for both plans, with a net cost of $11,000 increase of $11,526.96. And then we broke down the city cost is $710,013.17 for a net change of net $9,290. And that comes as a result of paying the 100% of the premium for the employee cost for the HSA plan on either plan option. Then at the bottom of the screen, it shows you the employee cost per month for the HSA plan, and then a buy-up option for the PPO. Are there any questions about that?
There was so this is no change to the plans from last year, to the plan, the benefits, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's keeping everything exactly the same as last year.
And to be clear to the council, we did do an RFP and go to market for market responses. United Healthcare was the only provider that gave an option that was close to current, and that option represented an increase of 6% when compared to your current plan. So our current provider, Blue Cross Blue Shield, did yield the best options for the city.
And so on my screen now, I've got just kind of a summary page that shows you essentially that, we went to market. We initially came out with a 9.9% increase. The city was experiencing a 64% loss ratio at the time of the renewal. I believe that has gone up a little bit at this point, but needless to say, at this point, that doesn't really matter. They have come out with their best and final offer. We really did not find anything in the market that would do better than Blue Cross Blue Shield with the same coverage. There were several other plan design changes we could look at, or narrow networks that would reduce your cost, but with the 1% increase, usually those types of changes are not worth the effort when you're looking at a 1% increase, or just slightly about 1% increase. Just because of the plan disruption and confusion on the employee's part. And we also, with all of the ancillary products that you have in place, those are currently with Blue Cross Blue Shield ancillary. And as Rodney mentioned, with those plans, being with Blue Cross Blue Shield, that yields you a 3.5% discount on your medical premiums to keep all of those ancillary products in place. There is no increase to your dental plan, and then all of the other benefits are still under rate guarantees for another year. So there's no change in benefits or rate for dental, vision. And then as you'll see at the bottom of the summary, it will show you kind of a breakdown of the cost differences. So really, you're looking at a $5.57 per employee cost change for this year.
Anyone have
When you
any?
see-
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And at the bottom of that page, a program that we brought to the group's attention is a program for first responders called Responder Health. This is an EAP, an employee assistance program that is designed specifically for first responders. That's police, fire, and dispatch. And this is a pretty unique program. It was created by a retired U.S. Marshal. All of the people that participate or work for Responder Health are actually either active duty first responders, military, or retired. And so with all of the things that your responders face on a day-to-day basis, this is an opportunity for them to speak to someone, a peer in their business, if they're having difficulties in life with marital issues, financial issues, whatever it may be. And this benefit is available not just to the employee, but their family as well. So it's a really nice program. The cost of it is $5 per responder per month. So currently you have about 88, and that includes your dispatch. This is a program that we're presenting for consideration by the city. This would be a new expense. So certainly something that you might want to consider. You certainly do not have to do this program effective May 1 with the rest of your benefits, but know that this type of service is out there for your employees. One thing I personally like about this program, they use Washington State privacy laws, which are the strictest in the country. So that information is held very close and not easily obtained by the bad actors or the people that you don't want to see that information. Anytime one of your responders contacts this program, it's confidential, and they have that. One unique thing about this program compared to a typical EAP plan, in that line of work, a lot of times your partner or someone that you're within the fire station that they may work with, they may see that person struggling with something, they can make a proactive call on one of their peers' behalf and engage a consultant, a counselor to actively or proactively reach out to the person who may be in need. So this is just something for the city to consider. Implementation, there's training that goes along with this, that those responders can receive, some continuing education training through this program. It's a very nice program, and certainly if the city wishes to entertain this, we'd be glad to set up a presentation from Responder Health for the city. I believe someone had a question or started to ask one.
I was just asking if anybody on the committee had any further questions, or I think this is going to be heard by finance as well, so if anybody on finance, might as well go ahead and ask them now for the second time. No questions there? All right.
Have we spoke to the, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Have we spoke to Chief Isbell or Chief Harris about this first responder program? Is that something that they would be interested in, or is it something, do they know anything about it? Do we,
They've not been included in the conversations. However, being a former first responder myself, I think it's a very
I like that.
beneficial program. It's a program of negligible cost to the city. It's less than $6,000.
5,280.
Okay. It's under $5,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think it's a very reasonable investment into the health and well-being of our first responders. I hadn't been asked for a recommendation yet, so that's.
Okay.
Justin, since this is going to be on your committee as well, do you have any other questions while they're here to do it all in one presentation?
No, I think the main thing was getting an understanding of what the cost of insurance was, making sure that we had a good, clear understanding of that.
And Alan, I guess one question I had was the HSA contribution we did last year.
Yes, sir.
That was intended to be a one-time contribution, wasn't it?
That was
As-
intended, that
To
was,
promote moving over to the HSA.
that's correct. Our employees were communicated with last year that last year would be the last year on on a double plan. What we were going to recommend is that if we kept two plans to allow those who have come off of the PPO simply because we were going to change it, that they be allowed to move back. However, I think it's in the best interest of the city to keep a single plan, no larger than our group is. Again, it will be up to the council to decide whether to include a contribution to the HSA or what. But unless we allow two-way movement, I'd recommend that we just keep with what we were directed to do last year, which was to say that we're moving to a single program this year. Or a single plan, rather.
So going to the single plan, what would be the cost to the city?
The cost would be the same. It's all calculated at the city calculation or the new cost per employee of I think it's, what is it?
Okay, that's right.
425.85.
The employee pays the difference between the HSA and the PPO.
Right.
PPO.
And what I'm saying is if we do go against what we said we were going to do last year, I've been advised by, matter of fact, one of the employees in the room that they moved to the HSA last year because they were told that we were moving from the two plans this year.
Okay.
So we're not going to do the 1,500? Is that what am I understanding?
No, that's not been recommended. That's a decision that the council makes.
If I may, if you'll look in the packet, I'm not sure what page it's on the packet. I've done a more complete comparison of our plan years. So, remember, we had a $1.2 million, kind of a baseline for insurance. So plugging in the rates that we have for all the employees, the vacant positions, the people that opt out, and then, everything we have. If you look, I have current, which is about 1.1 million, a little over, almost 120. This year, with what we go to the proposed, which last year included an estimated 169.5 for the HSA contribution, which is 1,500 per participant. On the proposed plan, we plugged in like 38,000. Obviously, it's clearly up to the council, which would take our total cost for insurance all in at just under $1 million.
Was that 38,000 just to be contributed to those that had not moved over yet, or was that an even?
It's 38,000. How y'all divvy it up? It's just, I put a number in there. So
Okay.
if we divided it by the whole 100 and, well, 100.
I'm coming up with 38,000 and 139 employees, that would be roughly $273
Yeah.
available for the HSA contribution per employee.
So it's up to you.
273.38.
I think since, to Alan's point, since last year it was said that this would be the last chance, then basically the chance at the 1,500 was lost at that point, I think. That didn't, for those that didn't move over at that point. So if we were gonna include something, I think it would need to be equal across the board, not just limited to those that move over.
you may have a Department of Labor issue. I mean, you may not be able to designate only those that are moving over.
Right. They have to be everybody or.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alan, just to be sure, your recommendation is we go to the single HSA plan,
Yes, sir.
and this has been illustrated, the $1 million has been illustrated with the 38,000 towards the HSA
Yes.
contributions. Any other questions? And do we hear a motion?
I move that we move to the I move that we approve or recommend to the council the HSA plan as staff has recommended.
Do we need to have included in the motion for the amount contributed to the HSA?
No, sir, I think that's in, we'll
That'll be
place
further
that
down.
out and we'll present it in the staff briefing for next week.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And same sign opposed. Hearing none, that will go to council with a recommendation for a single HSA plan. Next on the agenda is the.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is discuss the proposed step pay plan for mid-year adjustment. I believe Monica has passed that step plan out to everyone. So obviously, we've been working on this for a while, but this would be, there really hasn't been many changes over the last few times we've met, but we made a few tweaks to some individual positions that weren't flushed, that weren't exactly right. But this would be going to a 15-step plan for non-public safety employees. And would take public safety to a 10-step plan. They're currently on a 10-year max out, but they're on a 1, 3, 5, 7, and then max out at 10. And so this would take them to annual steps through the 10 years. As this is proposed, there's some changes in some of the command staff on public safety as well. Some of those they have a 2-year top out or a 2 or 3 year top out, and this would give them a 10-year as well. What we're proposing tonight, well, first of all, this is all based on a salary survey. That's where all these numbers came from. Of all the comparative cities we've been using, and we included some neighboring cities as well. But what's being proposed tonight is to simply plug employees here mid-year, plug our employees into the closest step above their current pay.
So everybody would get something.
So not 100% everybody. There's some
Right on.
very, very new hires that the bottom line didn't move, so nobody would go backwards. There'd be very few people that didn't have something, but there would be new employees if they didn't. Is that right? The right wording?
Yes, some people got very small.
Right. There are some that were small, and that's all based on the data. And so, for example, if there were I'll just, because it's the very first one, and I'm not picking anybody, but a clerk one, if we had a clerk one that today was making $23,500, the next one up would be $23,973. They would be plugged in at step 3, mid-year. And so that's, in addition to that, if employees who have been here 15 years, 15 to 20, would actually go up an extra step
In that position.
in that position. So they would go up to the next one plus 1 because of their length of time in service.
So, I'm sorry.
Alan's looking funny, like maybe that wasn't included.
So you mean if they never changed positions? They've only been in that
15 and
position?
20. Yes, we have some people that,
They wouldn't get a bonus for being 3 years at one position and
Correct, right.
Oh, okay.
the
Yeah.
other 12
Making
are
sure.
different sometimes.
And then if employees who've been here longer than 20 years would go 2 steps. Go to the next one plus 2.
That's correct.
They're good?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You're
I was-
right. I'm sorry.
Making sure that we were still on that train, so.
I didn't hear the first comment right, so
Okay.
that's the reason I was kind of perplexed.
Okay. So, as far as how the plan would be administered from here is not what we're voting on tonight. So this is essentially just a mid-year adjustment. We will continue to work on the policy on how employees would move through the plan. And would hope to have that done, well, we'll have that done by budget time. So, but this would be, we talked earlier in the year about doing the pay study, making adjustments that we needed to make, and so that's really all we're doing here. So what is being proposed is for all those employees that would be plugged into the next highest step, with the exception of the 15 or 20-plus years. And this would also include the adjustments that we discussed in executive session 2 weeks ago. Any questions there?
Mr. Chair, I'm not on your committee, but can I ask a question?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I think I understand, but for clarification, the proposed plan will address all of our employees regardless of position or regardless of time in service. It will address all the salary scale at this particular time for all of the employees.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And so everybody knows where we're going with this, is our policy that we have now, and again, we're not voting on policy, but I want to be sure everybody understands where we're going. Our policy as it stands right now is that we approve a CPI rate. We're very restricted on what staff can do as far as giving raises, who deserves them, who doesn't. So essentially, unless we do a salary survey and make an adjustment, there's really very little movement in pay. And there's no path for employees to know where they're going, with the exception of public safety. Yes, sir?
Just to clarify one thing, Monica did point out that we have two positions that we had zero comparisons to. We're going to have to continue to work on those two positions. And those are construction supervisor and project manager.
Pretty new positions. But the goal is to create this framework so that there is a path for employees where they can see where they're going. They know how to get a raise, other than just showing up to work and hoping council approves the CPI adjustment. So, this will also be on finance. I'll go ahead and let Monica kind of go through her projections. She's projected this out, let us know what this will cost this year, and based on some assumptions, what it might look like the next couple of years.
So what I did is I took the general fund summary, because obviously it has the biggest impact to the general fund.
Sorry.
That's okay, I just love this microphone.
And the camera.
Yes, sir. Let's not think about that. Okay, so what I did is I took the general fund summary, because the big bulk of our salaries sit in the general fund, and took what we approved during budget and what I had projected out, because we look at the next 4 years to see how it was going to impact us. And so if you'll look at what I've handed out, we have our admin requests. You've got one page that ends with admin requests on the far right side, and that was the current year's budget. And so what I did on that one is I added $125,000, because that's about the impact to the general fund for this year to do the mid-year adjustment. So I added that in. Obviously, that took us into a negative position because we were balanced before we did this. When I went over to the future years, one of the things that I did is we talked about our sales tax. You know, what happens if, sales tax don't come up with the increases that we had anticipated in the original projections. So what I did is I took where we are today, which through March, we were at 50, about 500,000, I think, over our projection for the fiscal year, and then just added if we had absolutely no increases over what we had projected. And it comes out to about 7.1 million in sales tax for the year. So I projected and put that in. We also went in and adjusted down some of the capital to make it work. We added in the about 275,000 that the increase would be if everybody went into the next step next year. And I added a 3% CPI because I'm trying to look at the worst case scenario. There was also 150,000 in there for potential public safety positions. And then we took 100,000 out because we figured we would use some of the savings on the health insurance to help cover that. And if you notice, when we get down to all of that, we're at a positive variance of about 25,000.
The cost of living adjustment, I mean, is that what the step plan would help to achieve?
So in those step plans, the average in between each one of those steps is about 2.65, so the cost of living would be strictly up to you.
Yeah. So, and that number equated to about 350,000
yeah.
out of this 12.2 million.
Yes.
So we're really talking about a difference of about 300,000
Yeah.
roughly year over year.
Sure. And then, yes, that was the original, is about 300,000 year over year if everybody, you know, meets their KPIs and goes to the next step. So then when you go out the next year, the sales tax is still the same flat line, and we're okay. It's when we get to the 24-25 year that we see that there, you know, will be an issue, so.
Have you projected a 3% CPI each year, rolling that forward?
Actually, in the next 2 years, it was 1.045.
But it's based on the original CPI adjustment of the 350.
I just did a flat 1.045, so it includes the original 300 plus another 4.5% on top of that.
Right.
So, yes.
Right. So, okay.
So projecting this out with flat
Yes.
sales tax revenue
Yes, sir.
and high CPI numbers. Well,
Yes.
they're not that high, but we're okay for the next 2 years.
It does appear, yes.
So I think we all know that projecting anything beyond that is really impossible anyway, so.
Would this
any-
give council
Putin
flexibility?
could
Like,
drop the
let's say
bomb.
that sales tax did happen, the issue related to sales tax. This gives future councils flexibility to do what they need to balance the budget.
Sure. Well, you can not give CPIs. You can freeze the step plans and just say,
Or frozen.
yeah, we're frozen.
I mean, from an economic standpoint, you can't
Yeah.
help what the
Yeah,
economy
you
is
can,
doing.
there's a lot of action you can take there to remedy any shortfalls that
Right.
are just unforeseen at this point, and there's no way to predict, really.
And Mr. Haskell had asked, what about the streets? Those are in the transfers out from the general fund to the capital projects. I left those exactly like they were. So we're not robbing from the streets to take care of this or anything like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any questions for Monica? Thank you, ma'am. I hear a motion from anybody. Again, this is all we're asking for, is to recommend to, all that's being proposed is to recommend to council the adjustment this year to move to the next step with 15-plus year employees moving an additional and 20-plus years moving two additional, along with the adjustments that were discussed in executive session 2 weeks ago. That's what's being proposed.
Also move.
A motion here. Second? Yes, we have. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Hearing none, I'm sorry, the ayes have it, so this will go to council with a positive recommendation for the mid-year adjustment at the April meeting. And our last item on personnel, I handed everybody a sheet of paper. I think everybody sent some responses to Cheryl this week we're trying to establish some criteria that we can use to help weed through applications for city manager, so that hopefully the whole council doesn't have to sit through and go through a whole lot of applications. I believe, and the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the intention is for personnel committee to screen those applications
Correct.
Initially. Okay.
That's correct.
So I wanted to be sure that the council was in agreement on what the personnel committee would use to screen those applications. So what you've got in front of you is basically a condensed version of all the responses that was received by Cheryl, in order of the most common response down to the least, and so really just need an approval from the committee to use these for the guidelines that we'll try to use for evaluating the applications.
Miss,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we would add a couple of things to it.
Okay.
I think it's pretty important that we've covered most of the things that concern me, with the exception of the ethics and with the exception of the integrity. And I think it's pretty darn important that those two words be in there.
So I completely agree with you. We should use those in evaluating. What we're looking for is things that we can try to see illustrated on applications, cover letters, resumes.
Okay, I got you there. But
so-
as long as that is one of the requirements that we have as we're reviewing examinations.
Yep.
I got you.
Yep.
That'd be fine.
Mr. Chair, one of the things that Alan recommended was that we hire someone who is a member of the,
Texas City Managers Association
Which
or
has-
eligible to.
which has a code of ethics that they swear by.
That's correct.
So that may be something we just want to put in there as a,
That's
we have that
correct.
in discussion. I'm not saying we need to do that here, but
Right.
I think it was a good recommendation you made.
Is that something the committee would like to see added?
And Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'll get you a copy of those.
Yeah.
I'll get you a copy of those.
Okay.
Great.
So you're gonna vote on this, or we gonna?
Yeah.
I think it's important that we vote on it so that it can go to the full council vote, because that's really what I'm looking for is to be sure that the council is all on board on what the committee is using. So,
I'll make the motion that we send to council these guidelines for evaluation for the city manager applications.
A second.
a motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And that will go to council with positive recommendation. And that concludes our personnel committee.
Mr. Haskey, Finance Committee.
All right. First item on the agenda is Banking Authority. First Financial wants a resolution that says who can be on the signature cards of the accounts.
And who has full banking authority so they can open bank accounts and things of that nature. And they wanted people's names, not just positions. It's in the ordinance that I have signatory authority as the finance director. And I think it says, and council designation or mayor designation?
Council designation.
Council designation. But they didn't want positions, they wanted actual people's names. So
Okay.
that's what we're
So
doing.
staff is recommending designating Alan Barnes, city manager, and Monica Harris, finance director, with full banking control, which includes signature authority, the ability to open accounts, as well as the ability to designate other staff authority. Staff also recommends designating Stacy King, City Secretary, and Lisa Slemons, Senior Accountant, with signature authority, and Deanna Cesada, Accountant, for inquiry authority. The above designations allow for redundancy in the case of personnel absences to allow for continuity of services. Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion?
As presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Or
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Item number 2, discuss employee benefits package for the plan year 2022-23. That was in the Personnel Committee discussion. And so as approving it from a finance standpoint, do we have a way to pay for it? It appears we do from a budgetary standpoint. Is there any other discussion from council or committee?
Would make the motion to approve as was approved by personnel.
Second is approved by person.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries with a positive recommendation to council. And then the final item is discuss proposed step pay plan for fiscal year 21-22. So this would be a budget adjustment item, is that correct?
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about.
125,000? Okay.
I can tell you roughly what it is on the other funds if you would like. It's almost 12,000 for the water and about 11, almost 1,200 for the landfill for the half year.
Okay.
That
All right.
And 125 out of general fund.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little less than that, about 121.
Does council members or committee members have any questions or concerns on that?
Is there a reason we're doing this like halfway through the year and not waiting until the fiscal year?
That was, we talked during budget workshops this last year that was something that needed to be looked at again. Every 2 to 3 years, we look at doing the pay study. And so that our goal has been to have that completed by mid-year budget adjustments.
So if you move somebody up and they're a step above where they're where we're putting them, when we roll over again, they're another step above that.
Correct.
So you're moving in.
If council approves that in the next budget.
So it would get a raise now and in September.
Automatically?
We've
No,
not
there-
set the policy yet. There was some discussion today about, do we do the step increases in April? Do we do them do them now, do them next April, do them the following October? There were several things discussed during that time period. It's my understanding what we came out of the meeting today was to get the structure in place, and we would have the policy ready for you prior to your budget considerations. So you would allocate annually how much would be allocated and when the step raises would take place.
Typically, we're giving raises at the beginning of the fiscal year. That's when we're doing our cost of living.
So the CPI goes into effect at the beginning of the year, but when you have employees on the step plan, as we have with our public safety employees, it was always, with the police, it was their sworn date, right? And with the firefighters, it was their hire date. So you have people hitting steps all during the year. And we can continue with that pattern, or we can do something different. I think at this point, it's all up for negotiation.
So at this point, if this were approved and there was no change in the policy, then the current policy would remain and there would be no automatic move to the next step. or there would be no merit move to the next step. The intention is for much of this to be merit-based, but that policy will have to be changed before there's any further movement to the next step. So, as it stands now, I don't remember the exact specifics, but staff can only move, is it 5-10% from midpoint?
They can go 10% above minimum with 5 years' experience, or they can make a compelling argument to me to go to midpoint. And beyond midpoint, I have to put in writing my justification for approving their compelling argument, basically.
So if this were approved tonight, and then again at full council Tuesday, that policy is still in force at this time.
The 10% above minimum.
Yes.
I don't see going above that unless just very, very, more than compelling reason.
But we need to discuss a policy, so the policy going forward, should we, like, if, I understand that police and fire are doing it on their sworn day, do we do it on the anniversary date of the employee, and then we're doing CPIs at the beginning of the year? If we do a CPI at the beginning of the fiscal year?
I think that's all open for discussion.
But we're gonna discuss that in full council, we don't need to discuss it today.
This is just to get
This is
the
the
framework of a
discussion.
plan.
Okay.
And then as we go through budgets, I presume that's kind of what we talked about earlier, that as long as we're going through budget, we would be coming up with a plan like, this is KPI based, we have to have our KPIs in place, and then when the increases go, whether it's October 1, April 1st, or with people's hire dates or sworn dates.
So, but this is the mid-year discussion,
Correct.
that this item.
This is just an
agenda item.
adjustment to
To
pay,
the-
to plug them into the framework.
Right. The step plan was discussed in the personnel committee in its entirety. So. Okay. With that, do we have a motion on the proposed fiscal year budget adjustment for the pay plan?
Make the motion to approve the mid-year budget adjustment for the proposed step pay plan fiscal year 21-22.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carries, so that'll go forward with positive recommendation. And Mayor, that concludes the Finance Committee.
I just want to say one comment about what we did tonight. I want to say thank you to Ricky. Spent, I can't tell you how many hours he spent analyzing, being an advocate of both the employee and the city. I appreciate what you did and the work you put in, Monica, Cheryl, the work y'all did as well. So it was a good, y'all done a good job. And who? Oh, and Captain Gresham all there too. He was the analyst, right?
Yes.
All right, with that, it's 6:19 and our committee meeting will stand adjourned.